to become an insurance agent, you only need 220 hours of a classroom. And then you're literally responsible whether the business survives or not. Because if you're not writing the right liability policy, and we've talked about this before, where there's gaps in coverage, where exclusions, and I'm going to side note this whole thing because we've been talking about workers' comp, but since we've been doing liability, umbrella, all other lines of coverage, I should have been doing this years ago, and taken the same analytical approach, because what's happened to contractors is the world has changed around them and they didn't even realize it. So the insurance carriers are taking coverages away, liability, umbrella, audit, they're taking, and agents, good luck finding one that's going to read the policy and say, oh, by the way, Mr. Plumbing Contractor, you have no coverage if you're working in a condo, an apartment building, or a mixed use building. This is a new client of ours that we reviewed. He's over in Tampa. We reviewed his policy, his liability policy, and the guy's name is Brian. And I went back to him. This is before we wrote it, because what we do is we do a gap analysis on these policies just to look for mistakes. Just if they have a really good, solid policy, but most of the time nobody's reading these policies. And so I went back to Brian. I go, hey man, you're covered for residential work. He goes, good. I go, condos. If you're 6 floors up in a condo and you don't tighten up the water line on the refrigerator, on the ice maker, and it leaks, mold, no coverage. Now, doesn't have coverage. This guy's been in business a long, long time. He's worth a lot of money. What's an attorney going to cost him? He's probably going to have to bankrupt this company, change. You see what I mean? Because an agent never came in to said, oh, by the way, Brian, yeah, you can't do this.
It's kind of the insurance companies also misleading everybody, taking out coverages, not telling anyone. It's not great on either side. This is not fair to these guys.
Let's make an assumption.
If there's a coverage that's being taken out, you should tell me the next time I go over to renew my policy. Hey, by the way, this is missing.
Yeah, they're not.
You want that coverage? Here's an extra $50 for it.
Well, you can do that too. Some of these coverages, they'll give them back to you if you just ask them.
Know, but what if you don't know it's gone? That's what I'm saying.
As an agent,
at least it alert me.
That's your responsibility.
No, the client.
Well, that's his agent's responsibility to tell you.
That's what I'm saying. If you have a bad agent and he doesn't tell you this,
that's the point I'm making. Nobody's seeing it.
So the insurance company's telling these agents to make sure that the clients also know. They're not really. The agent, the carrier. There should be a red flag that pops up, Duke. I'm not happy with this.
Here's your quote. And by the way, because agents think a lot of times, not all of them, we got to beat the price, because that's what the contractor's doing, right? Contractor, how much? When they look at the proposal, they go to the back page, how much?
All right, you got me on that one, because there is an analogy to construction.
That is exactly what they do. But they don't say, is the policy mirror the policy the year before or the year before? If I'm a contractor, I'm gonna write my insurance agent a letter and I go, I trust you implicitly. You've done a great job for me, but I need to know in case of a catastrophic event that my business is covered.
Right.
And when that agent gets that, you know what's getting ready to tighten up? He could go to prison and not worry about being violated, because that's how tight he's going to be. Because he's thinking, this guy is looking at my policy.
Right.
And so, and by the way, that agent should not have a license. He's Carmen.
And he's representing
insurance
that insurance
agents
company.
Make a lot of money.
He's representing the insurance company.
That's exactly right. And he makes a lot of money by selling these policies. For doing that, don't you think you have to do more than send a certificate of insurance out and take them to dinner a couple times a year? No, you got to read that. And you have to tell them. It's okay to say, look, we don't have coverage here and here.
Yeah.
Because the business owner, just tell me. Because I may say, look, I'll self-insure that. As long as he's aware of it. But if he's not aware of it, that is a problem. This is first time we started doing all this business. So when we started to do liability insurance, umbrella, and so you know this story. So our daughter Morgan came to me and she goes, Duke, we're going to do all lines of coverage. I think we should do it. And I go, no. I give her the whole air quote. It's called WorkComp Solutions, right? Get it?
Yeah.
Right? And I said, here, reach out to our clients. And if they're interested, we'll explore it. And so because we've had a lot of clients for a long, long time, and their response was, Duke, or Morgan, if you do all lines of coverage like you do workers' comp, you can have it. So Morgan comes back to me and she says, this is what they're saying. I go, but we don't. We don't do everything as good as we do workers' comp. Now, but we can, but right now. So the first thing I want to do is, I got a dear friend of mine, and this guy does, you've met him, my friend Drew Boyd, and I'll be more than happy to plug him. Drew does gap analysis, the kid out of Gainesville. And he's not an agent, but he reviews policies, I mean, like a lawyer reviews a contract.
Right.
And so we start getting, my first client, Robbie Collins, has been with me 30 years. His company's called Corrosion Control. And Robbie said, look at all my stuff. Absolutely. So we look at all the stuff, we send it. So the first thing Drew picks out is he has a $10,000 deductible per claim. Because the deductible is either per claim or per occurrence, right? So that's what it is. So it's per claim. So Drew goes, this could be a problem. You probably want per occurrence. And so we went back and we talked to it with Robbie and we said, look, because I remembered like several years ago, Robbie oversprayed 300 cars in downtown Orlando. So in his old policy, he had a per occurrence. So it's $10,000. So that $10,000 covered every one of those three. Wow. So now it's per claim. Every car is now $10,000 deductible per claim. Now, some of them you can buff out for $1,000, $800. But if you buffed every one of them out at $800, do the math. It's $250,000. And by the way,
this language is so misleading, though.
No, the agent knew. And the agent that got that, he had a new agent. And the agent changed it.
The client is the one that is looking at this, and the agent may be leading.
Client doesn't know what it is.
That's what I'm saying. We don't know. I'm assuming they're like me with my insurance agent, and he tells me something, and he doesn't explain everything fully to me. And then later on, I find out the per claim, per occurrence thing, and I go, what?
Well,
why didn't you explain that clearer?
So you got an SR22, you got minimum limits or your auto. I don't think you're
I have a Kia. I have a 2012 Kia.
I've seen it.
Okay, so it's fully covered.
It's paid for.
That's right.
That's paid for.
And per occurrence, it better be very low.
But I don't think you have it on that. But the point is that Robbie didn't know this. Robbie had no clue. And all he knew the agent that brought it in was cheaper than what he had. So he fired his old agent and brought this guy. But he had no idea what exposure he was going to have. So it's all people want to know is they just want to know. So we do this gap analysis. And you said something a minute ago. So if there's gaps, sometimes you can go to the carrier and go, no, we need this covered. Sometimes they'll add it for free. They'll just add it back in. Or we find exclusions. Yeah, it's not. But you got to go through every single.
Yes, and I'm going to just be on the other side of this. You're the agent, and I'm just the client. And this happens in the real world. The people who have no work comp is that you find out when you get in the car accident, you didn't have rental car coverage.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And then your insurance, but you did on the old car.
Yeah.
But when you got the new policy, well, how come you didn't put it in there? You knew I had it on the old policy.
Right.
Why would you do this to me?
That's right.
And I still didn't get rid of that agent.
You did.
Because this is human behavior.
Yeah.
We just need a little more. You're going to have to not give me the rental car coverage, and you're going to have to like punch me in the eye. Some other addition for me to go, I'm done with this guy. But the problem is that we don't know. It seems unfair. Isn't this the buyer beware that they talk about?
No.
With anyone? Because if you buy insurance from people.
Because good is good enough. Nobody's holding this agent going, look, I expect you to be better than average. And a lot of people say, yeah, I like my agent. That's what they base their decision on.
He's Italian. I like this guy.
It's like, and if they get their certificates out. So if somebody in the office goes, I asked for a certificate, and they get it right out, they're basing that relationship on getting literally, I don't want to say it's a minimum wage job, but to get a certificate out, somebody send a certificate of insurance out for you, say you have coverage. Yeah. You base it on somebody that's being proactive, that's watching out for you to make sure it doesn't happen. And that's really what that's what when I want somebody working for me, I want my CPA to be proactive.
Right.
And that's probably a great analysis of this stuff.
Okay.